And one thing I haven't mentioned is I do have Métis status from Alberta, so I've joined up with another gentleman called Walter Daigle with It's a Time for Change, and this gentleman has worked with the government for the last 20 years on Indigenous liaisons. So through Truth and Reconciliation, there's a lot of capital
Yeah.
set aside for Truth and Reconciliation, and they want to get their money in play where it actually helps the environment.
Yeah.
So to qualify your question is to actually, I go camping 4 times a year in this beautiful province, Risser's Beach. There's so many beaches. And, you talk to people, oh, our oysters are in trouble because our water, like how is our water, one of our 4 basic elements, not protected, vehemently? How are those laws in this, this public, we're going to protect the environment, but behind the scenes, we're dumping. Anyways, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but my vision and what I want to do is to actually do something tangible for the environment. And like I said, I'm 180 from oil and gas into this, but this beautiful province I've been in for 11 years now has shown me that it's worth protecting. And there's an economic boom, and there's a fastest growing province, so people are coming fast. We have to be careful. We have to be sustainable on how we go forward, or else, not to talk bad about Vancouver, but there's going to be a similar situation where it's out of control and we've lost it. And this province is too special to allow that. So I'm here to protect it so that my daughters can take their children to a beach and an ocean and not have a rash on their feet or drinking water. Like we all talk about this environment changing, which it is, but we don't action anything.
Yeah.
So,
or it's almost as if it's just like fake action, or it's just almost like, hey, I'm going to make these announcements or whatever, but it's almost like just virtue signaling. We're not actually doing anything.
Exactly.
That's what I feel like for nowadays when you're talking about the electric vehicles. It's like, if you look at that on the whole, it seems like it's just as carbon intensive as a combustion engine, or maybe even more so, just because of the chemicals and all the processes to even make a battery and all that kind of stuff. So that's amazing. I really love what you're saying too about just actually making a difference in the environment. Now, maybe you could educate me on this, because I don't know too much about the government and what they're doing.
Sure.
But you think there's this huge play on this net zero, and we want to do all this stuff for the environment. And there's that fund that was out that's getting into a little bit of a heat with the RTC. It's like a scandal or whatever, because they had all these hundreds of millions of dollars put in that it was supposed to be for green initiatives. And I guess maybe so a 2-part question is that there's got to be lots of money for somebody like you who actually wants to make a difference. So maybe we could talk about that. But then is it a thing too where is a lot of the government funding that they're making for these kinds of things just going, like, is it just lining their own pockets or whatever? Because why is this a scandal? Why isn't it not going to companies that are actually doing good? It's very strange to me.
Like any company, there's good and bad people. And then I think with even the government, there's good and bad initiatives. So some, like for example, a lot of this capital is there, but it's hard to figure out the paperwork and to qualify.
Yeah.
That's where this Indigenous aspect is so good for me personally, is because they have the capital and they are the ones looking to for joint ventures and liaisons for companies like myself, but with the initiative and the intent to actually preserve forests, trees, anything, the air, fisheries. So that's kind of and to skip back. My plan also is to, seafood in this province. Valley vegetables. So I really want to get to a point where I'm, on the 102 or wherever with a fleet of 5 tons that are sustainably bringing seafood and vegetables to market or to restaurants or to farmers markets. My business model is going to reduce, what is it, $1.60 a liter of carbon?
Yeah, 165, 170. Yeah.
So for me to bring that price down, in today's world, everything's going up. So I want to also be able to make it affordable for a family to come visit Nova Scotia, so you can take a hydrogen vehicle for driver days and not pay, $80. I'm going to still take, as a business owner, my margin, but I'm also going to start reverting those rates and give it back to the customers.
Yeah.
But also, if you want to go buy organic carrots right now, it's probably $7, $8. Sobeys is selling those chlorine carrots for whatever, $5. I want to, with my business model, I really want to go in and be able to make our vegetables, the good vegetables, the organic ones coming from the valley, affordable. And that's every job that I've worked at is freight is always the number one cutting into profits. So if I can reduce that by half, corporations, corporate customers are going to come to me and say, okay, we want to use your indigenous sponsored green hydrogen transportation company.
Yeah.
So that is my ultimate 5-year plan.
Yeah.
And employ, equity ownership for my employees, create a co-op. Like
Yeah.
one business owner doesn't have to take all of that, right?
Yeah.
How much is enough? Like if this goes
That's
great,
an interesting point. Yeah.
right? Like if this goes great and there's millions of dollars on the table because this is a new energy, awesome. But I'm not going to be the only one,
It's going to benefit from it.
It's going to benefit. I want to create something that change, really.
Yeah.
Funny enough, the indigenous company's called "It's a Time for Change," and he's bang on with his slogan. It is time for change. The old system of everything, transportation, money, everything, as you can look in North America right now, is broken.
Yeah.
So I want to be a steward in that new change where we have to. There is no, like you said, we can't just talk about doing these changes anymore, and government can't just say we're doing it and walk around with a piece of paper and never action anything, because who knows what the next political party is going to be. And we're not going to do anything because there's only a year and a half left, and the conservatives might get in. So we have all these plans. We've identified the problem, but we're not going to action them.
Yeah.
I'm finally going to take that into my own hands and action it, so that once again, everything's affordable and it's sustainable for the environment.
Yeah.
Because we only have one environment and we only have one element called water.
Yeah, that's amazing. Like, to me, it sounds like what you're talking about obviously sounds amazing, and it seems to me like you're like the right person to do it, which is just phenomenal. And it seems like it would be great slogans even for the government to get on board. So it's like, hey, we funded this company, we did this thing. Like, hey, we got fresh vegetable. Like, what is it that Pierre Poilievre says? He always like, oh, the farmers grow the food and take the food, because he's doing his whole like axe tax speech or whatever.
Yeah.
But this is like actually doing something where we're going to make it super cheap to transport the food, which, like you said, it's huge. People don't think about where the food comes from. Like, it's getting shipped and transported all over. And not only can you make it cheaper, you can make it cleaner so that the trucks and whatever that are transporting it are just spewing out like water or whatever. Whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Water vapor.
Clean, right? Yeah. So I mean, it's just amazing. It's just like a win-win for everybody.
Well, yeah, because this produce and this seafood is coming from the areas that I'm going to protect. So it's a truly sustainable business plan.
Yeah.
Why would we not? Right? Yeah. We've taken for too long, and look at look at the crisis we're in. Our oysters in Atlantic Canada are dying. Green bloom. We can't drink our own water. Like, when do we finally say, and everybody's standing up and the environment. Yeah. But you're still buying Amazon. Right. Like Amazon is another example. I would love to get into that supply chain and offer our hydrogen vehicles. So I don't know.
You're ready, that's I know you probably have in your mind, this is the 10, 15 years down the road. Oh man, we could do some real damage here.
Exactly. So that
in a good way.
In a good way. So that anything that comes into Atlantic Canada is emitting water, which look at Newfoundland, New Brunswick, and Nova Scotia and PEI. They're all by the water and reliant on the water.